Hello students and welcome to this chapter on 2.3 leadership and management, and this is video 1 in this chapter, and there's going to be 2 videos. So 2.3 is obviously the third chapter in the topic 2 in the syllabus, human resource management, and so far we've done an introduction, and 2.2 is organizational structure. The learning objectives are not too bad. In the first video we're going to do the first 2. And in the second video, we're going to do the leadership styles overall. One thing to note is that one of the learning objectives we're going to cover today is HL only. So SL students don't need to know that, but when I do that slide, I'll cover that. So what is the difference between management and leadership? And when we look at these two, they kind of seem the same thing. Some people tend to use these words interchangeably, but in terms of this course, we're actually going to assign different definitions to these. So what we'll do first is we'll go through and define these terms. So a manager in this situation is a person who organizes the resources within an organization in order to achieve the objectives of the organization. And I think a quick sentence way of explaining this is someone who kind of gets things done. They direct people, they direct other resources, money, etc. And their intention is they just want to get things done. They want to achieve the objectives of the organization. In contrast, as a leader is a person who has a vision for the future of the organization, inspires others to follow them. And I think the key part of leadership is it's someone who kind of inspires other people to achieve things themselves. And obviously that will then, in theory, help them going forward. And I think a quick note here is a person may act as both a leader and a manager. And I think sometimes, one person can be more like a leader or more like a manager, but I think there is a crossover here. And I'll just move my head. There's a diagram here, which I think is a good one to illustrate this. You can see that it says boss here, but this can be used the same as manager. A manager here is kind of just getting other people to do things in order to achieve the objectives of the firm. And the leader here is getting stuck in. They're leading people. They're trying to inspire people. And you can see by kind of joining in with the other people, they're in theory trying to inspire them. And like I said, I think that people in these positions will sometimes be more like this or sometimes more like this. So there is definitely some interchangeability between them. So moving on, what do managers do? Well, in order to answer this question, we're actually going to use the theory by Henri Fayols, who was born a number of years ago, and he wrote a book in 1916 called this, and I think it's the General Principles of Administration, I think is how it translates. The book was released in English, I think in the 1940s or something like this. And Fayols was one of the first thinkers to actually come up with a theory for exactly what managers do. And what he did was he said that managers do 5 things. So we're going to look at those 5 things in detail. So the first thing that managers do is they plan. One of the main things here is they're going to set objectives. And what I'm going to do for each of these 5, I'm going to give an example related to a football team. This could be, you could put this into business, but I'm just going to use football for today. And so if I'm a manager of a football team, my goal might be, okay, we're going to achieve a top 5 place in the league. So the first thing the managers do is they set objectives and they make plans for the future. The second thing they might do is organize. And here we're talking about organizing resources. So we're trying to make sure that resources are in the right place. And by resources, we mean people, we need capital, we need money, et cetera, et cetera. So as a manager of the football team, I'm going to be hiring players or buying players. I'm going to be making sure we've got the right staff members. And then I'm going to do things like creating training schedules. So by creating training schedules, we can make sure that the players and the staff are actually in the right place overall. The third thing I might do is command. So you can say commanding is kind of telling people what to do. So here we're going to assign tasks to employees and making sure that they do this. We're making sure the resources are doing what they should be doing. And here, for example, I might be saying, okay, well, assigning trainers to different types of training. So we might put one trainer in fitness training, one in attacking training, one in defensive training, etc. And then we might also be assessing training performance overall to make sure that we have the right people in the right place. Next, we're going to coordinate. So we're going to make sure that everybody is working towards the same goal. So here we want to do things like team building, resolving conflicts between players or between players and staff or whatever. So we're making sure that everyone is working in the right direction. And then finally, we are going to be controlling. And here we are measuring performance. And then we're going to make changes if necessary. So if we measure performance and we see that we've done well, then we continue doing that. If things aren't going so well, then we're obviously going to go back and then change some of these to make sure that maybe we've got the wrong resources in the wrong place, or not everyone is working in the same direction or something. And as a football manager, maybe I'm assessing player performances during matches, and then maybe I'm going to be changing training routines if things aren't working correctly. So this was a theory that came up over 100 years ago. So Fayol wasn't the only one who came up with this was called management theory. Later on, Mintzberg, you may have heard of him as well. He kind of came up with something similar, but he broke down the management roles into three things: interpersonal, informational, and decisional. And within each of those three parts, there were then subparts, if you know what I mean. So within interpersonal, there's figurehead, leader, liaison. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but I think the key thing here is that there's been a lot of research around management theory. And you can study this in a lot more detail. We don't go into too much depth in the IB syllabus, but there are other theories out there along that. So next, we're going to look a little bit more about leadership. In the next video, we're going to do a lot more about leadership. But similarly to what we said, what do managers do? What do leaders do? Well, there's lots of things. In order to inspire people, then we need to create a vision for the organization. So leaders will create a vision for the organization, and then they'll communicate that to staff so that everyone has that buy-in and they can follow that vision. The leader, in theory, should be a role model so that inspires people. And then again, I've used this word inspire many times, but they're there to inspire and motivate people so that they're driving people forward towards this objective. And I think part of it is building the culture required to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And this diagram, I think, measures things really well. So on the left, we've got these are all the things that leaders do. On the right, these are all the things that managers do. And in the middle, there's going to be things or tasks which go under both leader and manager. So again, there's definitely a crossover between these two. And sometimes it can be difficult to see what the difference is, but what they're doing here is trying to say what this difference is. And like I said, more on leadership in the next video. So the final thing for this video is scientific and intuitive thinking. This is HL only, so only HL students actually need to do this. So this is all about decision making. Specifically, this is applied to when managers are making decisions. So scientific management is when data is collected and analyzed and a decision is made based on this. And this is a bit like the scientific method where you hypothesize, you come up with data, and then you make a decision based on this. And you could say that this type of decision making is logical, it's rational, it's data based, and seems brilliant because all of your decisions are actually based on some sort of fact or data. Some of the problems with this is that sometimes it can be costly to collect that data, depending on what the decision is. The data could be biased or it might not be available. And if those are the situations, then another way of making decisions is intuitive management. And this is when we make decisions based on intuition or gut feeling. And so this is good when data is not available or potentially biased. And also sometimes data doesn't work. So for example, if we're interviewing people, then obviously when we interview people, we can use scientific decision making because we can look at the data on their CV. We can do tests, etc. So we can collect all of that data about their background and their performance and their cognitive ability in the assessment tasks. Intuitive management would be when maybe you're interviewing someone and you get a gut feeling about them, and this can be something that you can add to the decision making. So often when decisions are made, it's going to be a combination of scientific and intuitive management. And so intuitive is good when data is not available or it's potentially biased. We don't go into this in too much detail, so I'm going to leave that there. All right, that's the first video done. Next time we're going to do leadership styles. I'll see you then.